We are back again with another Mums Coaching Moms weekly video, and we are now into December. So it's like, oh my goodness, crazy. I mean, all year, I mean, especially if you have kids, it's like, when is it going to be Christmas? When is it going to be Christmas? And, it's like, oh, it's this many months. And then it's like, it just all of a sudden hits to the weeks and it's like days and wow. So we want to talk this month just about Christmas, about the holidays, about how for a lot of people that can bring a lot of stress. I mean, one thing, if you saw some of our previous videos, we mentioned the movie Bad Moms, and there is a Bad Moms Christmas, which we really enjoyed. And so we've been like joking about like, oh, are you having a Bad Moms Christmas? Like, and but our title for today and what we really want to talk about is infusing joy into the holidays. Because one of the things that I think we all can acknowledge, even if we didn't live it, even in childhood, but depending on through life, at some point, there was probably some sort of where expectations didn't meet reality. And sometimes it actually went to like a deep wounding in someone. Sometimes it was just like, oh, I didn't get what I asked for. Although, like, I do want to say, like, for a child, that can be a really deep wounding for them. And it might sound funny and it might sound like, oh, it's just like a toy, it's just a thing. However, we don't know how it landed in their brain. We don't know how that story stuck. And so I came across a poster on Instagram last night, actually, and shared it. And to me, this is just sort of speaks to everything that we are doing at Moms Coaching Moms, with the coaching, with the weekly NJAM Conversations, with in January and the new year and stuff, we're going to be starting group coaching, specific group coaching sessions with moms. And this is a big piece of it. So healing your childhood wounds happens in the small things you do every day to meet yourself where you are with love instead of judgment. And judgment is a huge piece of what we talked about all through November, is those judgments of good or bad. And one thing that, when we get to holidays, everyone has expectations, ideas that they want this and I mean, the bigger the family, the more expectations there are because there's more people. And, I know for us, like at one point, for me, there was like, how many different families? There was like, multiple different families of dynamics of extended family and all of that. And it can be really hard. And there's expectations from like everyone out there. And it's like, what do you do when expectations don't meet the reality of what actually happens? And so we just want to talk about how can we infuse joy into the holidays? We can't fix everything. We can't just make it all amazing and the angels singing, but maybe there is a way. And you came up with the word infusing, and I think it's spectacular because I don't know. Do you want to just I think the explanation of it is just amazing of why you chose that word or why that came to you.
Yeah, why that word came to me. Well, the idea for me was that, in the holidays, you have all these different scents and smells and dreams and goals and all these different things, and you infuse them into your life. So maybe it's the apple pie, maybe it's the shortbread, maybe it's the pine, spruce, whatever the smells are that you like. And sometimes this idea that we have to be happy in the holidays feels like a punch to the face or a knife to the gut or whatever. And this idea of infusing is just these little whiffs that can actually soothe your soul the same way that the smell of that, apple pie or cinnamon or whatever, that can just be like, and so that idea of joy, because we want to remember that joy is being glad to be together in strength and in weakness. And sometimes the holidays are a really hard time.
Yeah.
And it could be many different things. Maybe there's an illness in your family. Maybe you can't see your family. Maybe there has been a death in the family. Maybe, there's a lot of mental health issues. Maybe there's financial issues. There's so many different things that then you want to hide.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea of infusing joy, infusing peace, just in that moment, meeting yourself where you're at.
Yeah.
Because once you can meet yourself where you're at, you can meet other people where they're at too. And so this idea of the infusing just gave me this sense of, okay, that is doable. 100% doable.
Yeah. Well, and I think another one way that we talk about it in Moms Coaching Moms Weekly, what reminds me is our soul snacks.
Absolutely.
Because our soul snacks are just these little bits, these little pieces, these little things, these little bits of time, whatever it happens to be, that feeds our soul. And so if we can look at that at Christmas or at the holidays, or any holiday really, but we're coming up to Christmas, so that's why we're talking about this now. But those times of, like, I know for you and I know for me too, and even my kids, like, we love Christmas lights, and we love to just, I have a lot of trees in my house that are always set up. And so once it hits, like, my trees are going up already. And once it hits now, it's like, we almost don't even use any other lights in our house. We just keep Christmas lights on all the time. At night, we'll turn a bunch off, but we'll always leave some on. And that is so peaceful, just to sit with Christmas lights. For me, I love that moment. Yeah. Christmas movies, I've been watching them for a few weeks already.
Me too.
I love those moments of just being able, I'll sit and watch them and I'll find myself just smiling, and I know I get bugged all the time, because it's like you already know the story. I'm like, oh, I know there's only about 2 main plot lines that go through all the Christmas movies. I know, like, there's only about 2, but it's just feel good and it feeds my soul. It's that infusion of joy, because that brings me joy. And I think that's something just to even acknowledge, that joy for me will be different than joy might be different. We have a lot of things that actually bring us joy the same, but there will be things that will be different. And then everyone else in our lives as well, joy is different for each person. And it's not a right or wrong thing. There's no right or wrong with it.
Yes.
Or bad. It just is. And so instead of making a judgment of like, oh, that's really silly, like, we can just allow people to have their joy. Even like that might be someone's way of infusing joy, is just allowing someone else to just have their joy for a moment. Even if,
absolutely,
I get bugged all the time, like putting Christmas up so early and watching Christmas movies for songs, starting Christmas music really early, like all of that kind of stuff. And I know some people, it's like most people, it's all in fun and stuff. However, like that does bring me joy. And I'm okay with other people not, I know there's people that have traditions that it's like, okay, December 24th, that's kind of when everything goes up. And that's okay. If that brings you joy, and having Christmas down on Boxing Day, hey, that's amazing. Then I hope that you do that if that's what you need. Yeah. So our question that we really want to ask is, what works for you? What brings you joy? What brings you peace? And we are hoping that anyone who sees this will ask themselves that. And because it's the very beginning of December now is a great time to be thinking about that. Yeah. Because I know for me, many years, I would get into like the Christmas week, and then I'm so stressed and I'm like not a happy person, not joy filled, not like, I'm just this stressed out mom that's like, I end up like freaking out on little things that technically, I mean, we could say shouldn't bother me, but they do. And so it was many, many years ago now, but there were certain things that I put in place long before Christmas, the actual holidays, to bring me more joy and peace later on, and would bring my family more joy and peace later on. So I know when we were talking, you were sharing a story that it just kind of happened. And then you kind of looked back on it and were like, whoa, that was really, so that's amazing. I love those.
Yeah. Yeah. So we grew up in Alberta, where you are, and all of our family, both mine and my husband's families are all there. And so we, in 2006, moved out to the coast, wet West Coast. And it was a very hard adjustment, quite honestly. I was not used to the weather and stuff. And what is funny, just a side note, the rain barely bothers me anymore. However, what I notice when the rain clears out, I'm like, oh. However, for the first few years of living here, it really, really messed with my mind and my emotions. So it is nice to see that I have been able to adapt to that. So going back to that, because Christmas was a hard time, a year to navigate, because my parents weren't together anymore. And so, we had that, and then we had my husband's family, and then we had extended family, and then we wanted to do our own family, and trying to navigate all of that without it being a giant stress ball. And because we didn't have any of the emotional intelligence we do now, it was just insane. So when we moved out here, it came time to have our first Christmas, and my husband actually worked across the border at the time and had been given, I don't remember if it was a client or something, anyways, gave him tickets to the Seahawks. Well, I guess everyone probably knows who the Seahawks are. And it was for Christmas Eve. And so my husband was trying to tell me that. I was like, hey, this is great. Like, we'll just all go down to Seattle on Christmas Eve. And so our kids were quite young then. So they were like, I don't know, 7 and 4 maybe. And so my husband went to the game, and our hotel was in downtown Seattle, and the streets were pretty cleared because it was later and it was Christmas Eve, and we just, it was raining, so we had umbrellas. However, the store fronts were just totally lit up, and it was so awesome to see all of that. And definitely, down in the States, they do Christmas storefront windows way different than in Canada. Like, we don't have half the stuff that they have down there. And so it was literally like being in a movie, and the kids were totally taken by that. And then if we wanted to go swimming, we went swimming. And if we wanted to have snacks in the room, we had snacks in the room. And there was no stress. It was just sort of whatever we wanted to do in that moment. And interestingly enough, in that moment, I was not aware of how non-stressful it was. It was after when I thought, wow, like, we were just together. And then the next morning, it was Christmas morning, and we went to the Space Needle, and they had all sorts of things for kids there, and it was a beautiful sunny day. So, you got to go up to the top of the Space Needle, and we walked around. It was just amazing. And then, we had dinner, and there was just something about that. Like, in the moment, whatever we wanted to do, whatever the kids wanted, it was like, can we do this? Sure, why not? Like, we weren't on anyone else's time clock. We weren't having to get to this place, to that place, and we didn't have any of those extra demands. And by the time we got home, we were just all like, wow. And we ended up having stockings and stuff for the kids the next day. So, like, it was just an extended sort of Christmas thing. And since then, the kids still talk about it. And we actually even still have the Christmas decorations that they made in the Space Needle. And, they're like, hey, do you remember when we went to Seattle? Yes, I do.
That's amazing.
And And so I just think that that was something that was a very cool experience. We haven't done it since. However, every year since, so that was 2006. So since then, every year we have a conversation right around this time of year. What do you want to do for Christmas this year? And we all make a list, and we make sure that all the things that are on everyone's list, those are the things we do first. And then we add a couple of things from everyone's list that maybe other people, it wasn't on theirs. Partly because I believe in the power of compromise, and I believe in that communication. And it's not just all about one person. And so we do try to infuse all of those things. And there's that word again, the infusion, the integration, whichever way you want to look at it. And Christmas has a different meaning now. And yes, there's a part that sometimes we get sad when we're not with the rest of the extended family. And thanks to technology, there's FaceTime and Zoom and whatever that you can make those connections. And so, yeah, what can you do to infuse joy for us? It was what's important to each of us. And sometimes we have to let different things go. I love, candlelight Christmas Eve services. The rest of my family, not so much. So every 2 or 3 years, we do the candlelight Christmas Eve service because I love that.
Yeah.
It's probably the only time that I enjoy going to a service. So anyhow,
yeah.
That's
Well,
sort of
and
our story.
I think that's the important thing, is to just have communication. I mean, that's something that we talk about all the time here, is that communication, the dialogue, the asking the questions, and all of that. And I know for me, like, something I thought of actually when we've been talking about this is how to as well, like, transition from doing holidays as a kid to doing holidays as an adult in your own family. Because for me, that's where, like, I mean, our holidays were very different. We always lived like hours and hours, up to like 20 hours away at one point, like, from family, like when I was a kid. So we always did Christmas with, like, my brother, my mom and dad. Like, we did Christmas like beginning of December every year. That was our Christmas, because we always traveled and spent with the extended family over like the 2 weeks of Christmas holidays. And so what happened was like, as I became an adult, and then, okay, then you sort of just you keep doing those things. But at some point, there's a transition that needs to happen of, okay, now I have my own family, and now we need to, and I sort of look at it and go, okay, so like, when with your move, you were kind of forced into that.
Yeah.
You were like forced into, like, okay, it is just us now, which obviously, as you share, I mean, comes with its own struggles and sadness and just all of that in itself. For me, it was a little different. We were so enveloped by all the extended family that it's like we just kept living as if, like, not having our own family. And so that was something that, like, was really interesting, making that transition. And I didn't even recognize it until my kids were quite a bit older. And there were some things that I put in place that needed to happen, that there was some family that we got together with before any of the holidays started, because it was just a lot of stress that was created. And so I was like, okay, this is the strategy. This is what we're going to do. Like, we still will get with them, but it's done and over before, we want to be able to relax and actually be able to just, shut down. And I think for me as well, and the kids and stuff, we loved doing open houses. So we would do like an open house every year. I think we did them for about 10 years. And I mean, we've missed the last 2 now, I think, because of COVID. But, like, that was another one of those things that we just loved doing. It was an open house potluck. Anyone just came and went. And, there was no expectations with it. There was, I guess, sort of some stress leading up to it, or, I don't know, it was kind of fun getting the house ready and, you know, making the food and making, you know, stuff like that. But, you know, those were some of the things, I guess, for us, but that transition into like into like when you have your own family was, you know, not something that I ever consciously thought about. And yet it's something that I've already talked to my kids about, is that like at some point you will have your own, you know, you'll probably have your own family. And that's something to think about, of like what you want to do for you. And I love that idea that you shared about, like, you know, you all make those lists and then you come together and talk about that. And because then everyone kind of gets, I like to, you know, we do that too, like sort of that compromise. Okay, not everyone wants to do this, but you know, it's important to someone. And we talk about that, like, okay, how important is this? Is this like a 10 out of 10 on importance? Or is this like whatever, if we get to do it, I'd like it, you know? And those are the kind of questions that, you know, we've had too here with the kids when someone's like, I really want this, I really want to do it. Okay, so give me a scale. Like, what do you want on a scale here?
Well, and because I think one of the important things to add to that is that sometimes those things that are important and it's not important to someone else, that then it's okay to not do it together. And I think so often, you know, there's this expectation, well, we have to because we're family. And that is just not true.
Yeah.
It's just straight up not. And so giving that permission of, okay, it's really important for you that you go to, I don't know, skating, for example.
Yeah.
I hate skating. It hurts. It hurts me. I am cold. I have a bad ankle. It's not fun for me. Now, I will go and watch you if there's a place that I don't need to be cold.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, not cold.
However, I do know, and there have been a few years where Chad has taken the girls to go skating, and I get a tea and I sit under the heater and I watch them and I take pictures, and so it is important to them that they go skating, for example. Yeah. And there have been times where they've gone and I've stayed home. Christmas lights, Christmas tree, tea. It's wonderful.
Nice.
So I do think that it's also an important conversation to have, that just because something is important to one person and is not important to another, it does not mean that it can't be done.
Yeah, that is very true.
And allow those differences and to enjoy them. And you don't need to feel bad either when you're not doing it or that you are doing it, because it is important to have those differences and to experience them.
It is, totally. And just just to allow someone just that space.
Exactly.
Like, instead of like, that's more pressure, like more pressure to go, we all have to do all of this all the time. It's like, oh, like, I mean, like, and again, like the bigger family that you have, like the harder it is to do that. Yeah. I know for me as well, like our kids, there's almost a 9-year, like there's an 8-year, but almost 9-year gap between our oldest and youngest. Well, you know, like there's been different times over the years that it's been really difficult to do those things, you know, like when they were all really, really little, like born, like, you know, 8 and under, that was pretty easy. You know, you get the older ones that are like 12, 13, 14, and then you go 8 years younger. The younger ones are like 3, 4, 5 years old. That's like very different dynamics there. It's not that you can't do things together, but just to have that space to do things. You know, we're now moving into another space of where we all kind of do things together again. Our youngest are all like, the youngest are almost 13 and the oldest is 21. So like now we're kind of moving into that other space again of, okay, like we all can kind of just hang out and do stuff again. So, and I think that's the other thing too, is to just like give yourself a break.
Yeah.
And just like realize like there's going to be phases of life that you're going to go through. And sometimes things are going to be a little easier. Sometimes things are going to be a little harder. You know, when our kids were really little and needing to have like meal times and bedtimes. And I mean, I relaxed all of that a lot, but I mean, they're still little and they still, they're not staying up till midnight. Like they do have to go, if their bedtime's usually 8, I mean, you can push it maybe to 8:39 without, but then you're probably having meltdowns, and we all know those as moms. Those are real fun. But, like there's different phases of life, and it's okay to just embrace that phase that you're in and that space that you're in. And you can, like we're talking, you can infuse joy into each of those spaces and going, okay, where are we at right now as a family, whoever that family is. And so we just really want to ask, like, what's important to you for the holidays? And that's maybe that's an idea for whoever's listening, that maybe you want to start with that. So what is important to you? And maybe you want to get the people that you decide or you want on your list of in your life or in your time schedule over the holidays. Might be good to ask them to write out a list of that too, and what's important to them.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Because we don't always know that as parents, like we just think like, we think whatever for our kids, and maybe it's not really that. I've had times where I've been shocked that my kids are like, I just like to stay home and watch a movie. I'm like, really? Ooh, I like that. I don't like being cold either. I'm like, I love doing all sorts of stuff, but like cold, no, I'm out. If I get cold, I need the like the heated jacket and the just be like wrapped in a big, I don't know what tent. You walk around with like a heated tent on me or something. But
I get that.
Oh, so yes, we are just, we'd like to just encourage or whatever speaks to you, but just that maybe you can find ways to infuse joy into your holidays, these holidays season, whatever that means, leading up to it, over it, like whatever that means for you. And if you want to share your ideas, we would love to hear them, because I mean, that's how we learn and kind of go, oh, that's really cool. Like you can do that and you can do that. And we can all learn from each other as well. So we would love to hear that. Even if you have favorite Christmas memories that you want to share, that would be so fun. And otherwise, we are going to be talking again. We have our NJAM Conversations every Wednesday night. We will be taking 2 weeks off at the last Wednesday of December and the first Wednesday of January, the 29th and the 5th. Those are where we're going to be off, but otherwise every Wednesday night. And we have some special ones coming up throughout December where we're going to do some different kind of things on the Wednesday nights. And then, of course, in January, we're going to have our group coaching sessions that we are so excited for. We know the moms that are coming to our Wednesday nights love the Wednesday nights, and we're going to take those and we're going to go deeper, a lot deeper, and go into that a lot more. And, even just working on, the poster that I shared at the beginning, like healing your childhood wounds, like starting to talk about those stories and stuff is what we want to do. So yes. And otherwise, all our social media will be attached to our videos. And if you're a mom, Wednesday nights, NJAM Conversations, anyone can join us anytime. So
see you there.